Hi everyone. I just wanted to jump in and make a quick video on what happens after a breakout. So you can see on my screen I've got Tau, which last night broke out of this triangle pattern, as well as Bitcoin breaking out on the downside from this channel. So while it's still sort of in progress and nice and fresh, I wanted to be able to show everyone what I would do in this situation, without waiting days for it to stabilize and then coming back and show you what could have been. This is how I would actually treat it. So we can see these are on the 4-hour time frame up here. It's always better to get the overall picture by looking at the larger time frames before going into the smaller, if you're looking at entries or anything like that. On the 4-hour time frame, you can see that they're still in progress of creating the new low, or in Tau's case, it's actually in the process of creating a new high. On these candles, it's not enough to create new structure. So what I'll do here is we can look at this, on the larger time frames to say, well, it's broken out of some structure here on the upside. There's a good chance that it might continue to rise, but we'll keep an eye on that. And with Bitcoin, there's a good chance that it's broken down to the downside, so it's a decent chance that it might continue to drop. One thing, I like to use Trendlines for the majority of my trading, keeping it simple. Everyone's looking at the same sort of thing, so that's what creates the support and the resistance. Everyone sort of seeing the same thing as me and putting in the same orders as me is what creates that confluence to make the trades a bit more valid. In this case, with the trend lines, so with the trends, once they break out of trends, it is normal for them to retest. So in this case, Bitcoin may come up further, and if it does, we'll be looking at resistance. So when a line shows support in the past, once it's broken through, a lot of the time it will become resistant. So people will be watching this sort of area up here if Bitcoin does go up there, to see if it'll reverse again and have a larger reaction downwards. And similarly on Tau, it kind of has already broken out and retested, but because it's in this zone where there's a couple of things crossing over, it may or may not have been as confident. Like, you might not have been as confident entering, because it does go above, does go a bit below. And it depends. People might have their lines done up slightly differently than me. For example, if someone, there we go. So if someone was looking at these further drops, then we can see it's actually reacted quite well to that. It just depends on what people are looking at, and it sort of creates a scenario for a bit of risk management as well. So we'll get back to the restructuring after a breakout, but in this case, people might have been looking at placing an entry here, like a partial entry, and then maybe a partial entry here and a partial entry here. So you're not risking your full amount on the top, but if it does have a reaction and go up, great, you've got a little bit of profit. And then by the time it gets to the third resistance, or support I should say, you've got your full entry. So if it does rise, then you've got a bit more profit there. And you can put support underneath there, because if it's broken through 3 levels of support, you can put your stop loss under there, because if it's broken through 3 levels of support and closed candles underneath the support, there's a good chance that it will be breaking out from the downside. Now back into what I would do after a breakout. Let's go to the smaller time frame candles, the 15 minutes, and reset this view. So this gives a bit better idea of what actually happened when it did come down and hit. There was a bit of support, so people could have been valid in that entry, but it was pushed down further into this bottom support that we just actually placed on there just then. You could actually start looking at a bit of support here once it had the first couple of lows. So once it had a couple of lows here, a couple of spikes, you could start to draw it there. It's probably better not to do it that early, because as I'm saying about these breakouts, there's not enough structure, there's not enough consistency or anything like that to make it actual confident in that's actually a support. So let's just get rid of that. But it has gone back above the other support levels and bounced up. And what we would be looking at now is what we'll do after that. So once it starts to create a new top, a new bottom, and secondary ones, you can start to place structure there. Now we're seeing this after it's already happened. So even though this looks like I'm not actually putting it to the right place, when we're structuring a new pattern, this is what we'd be seeing, and this is what everyone else would be seeing as well. So on even smaller time frames, you might even see that, you know, this wick that's come up from the bottom hit the top and quickly gone back down. Same thing on the underside. It's just that these are very short time frames. It's broken out of that triangle on the upside, bumped up a little bit, come down to retest that support, and then shot up. Now that it is structure, and we're not looking at this as it's happening, if people were to be coming into this chart after it happened, they might be looking at placing structure along those points. And, you know, what can we see straight away? It's gone still through the upside there on that sort of breakout. It's come down a bit of a retest from here if people were using that bottom. Travel along there, broken through, and again, where's it finding support? On this trend line. So where it has seen resistance before is now turning into support. Yeah, just as it's happening there, it's broken through a little bit. We might see it retrace back up if other people are seeing that support line and maybe placing buy orders to that'll push the price back up. But we'll actually see that happening. Whether or not this is going to happen, this is how I would structure the charts after a breakout. We can also go into Fibonacci patterns with a high, a low, and a high. And the fact that it's sort of broken past the 618, it did sort of hesitate a little bit there. And when it's come back up, it looks like it sort of retested that. But the fact that it's gone through that 618 kind of shows that it's not a strong upward trend, at least on the 15 minutes. But let's get rid of that. If we were to go to the standard Fibonacci, we might see support around these levels. Again, if we go to the larger time frames, the 15-minute candles, they look a lot, but they're not really. This is the actual low to the high. So we might see support. Whoops, not the brush. The rectangle. From this 618 to the 667. And we'll make that green. Because that could be a buy area. And again, on the larger time frames, we'll use the trend-based one. And we'll see if there's any sort of confluence, any more confirmation that that's a good area. And what I'm seeing here, the 618 on there, is kind of around where it is now. So if it continues to drop here, the next support might be this 786 to the 0.5. Again, these sort of indicators and tools aren't what I would be placing trades on. That signifies that it's possibly a good buy area, but I would actually be looking more at the structure. I prefer to trade based on trend lines, and when it's reacting to trend lines, I've found that fairly consistent. So it's mainly if it does come down to this area and there's new structure that lies within there, it's just an additional confirmation. But with these larger time frame fib patterns, the 786 here and the 0.5, so 786 on the trend based one and the 0.5 on the standard one, is another area that I would be looking at reactions. Again, it's not going into that rectangle and automatic buy, but maybe if it creates structure, hits a trend line, which is close to the EMA, so that blue one is the 50-day average. If a couple of things line up, then this is just extra confirmation. And same down here, it actually looks like we might be getting like the 200-day EMA coming into that area. So again, if it hits structure, trend lines, as well as the EMA, as well as in that area, just the more confirmations you have, the better. You don't always have to be in a trade, so don't always be looking at what you're going to get into. Wait for everything to line up. So the more confirmations you have, more confluence, the more confidence you're going to have in the trade, and more likely to be able to take a profit. Let's swap over to Bitcoin. Now this one's a little bit messier. Just by looking at it, I don't see as much structure as I do with the tower ones up the top that had those flags going on. I'm just looking at this live as you guys, well, you guys aren't seeing it live, but you're seeing me do it in real time. I'll be placing a trend line there. I'll be placing a couple. It is better to have trend lines that hit multiple points. So something like here where we've got a couple of points laying along that trend, these large wicks can be a bit misleading. So it doesn't mean it's invalid. It just means that I would also be looking at this point as well as this point. We're seeing both of those EMAs come together here, so it's pretty interesting. But if we zoom out back onto the 4 hour, this is where I was saying that we might see a retest up here. And for Bitcoin, at the moment, that's what I'd be looking at. I don't really see too much. If I zoom into the 15 minutes, the only other thing I can see here is that the point that it's at now is close to two highs. So they were resistance before. Now that it's above, they can turn into support. So that's maybe another area. And look, we've made another triangle. It's come up here. So this may be a retest on the 15 minute, but it's just something to keep an eye on. Now, after a breakout of any sort of well-established plan, well-established structure, so this is zoomed back out to the 4 hour, and you can see how well that channel was respected over a course of a month, basically, the 1st of April to now, which is the 29th. So that was respecting it quite well, and you could be pretty confident when it did come up to this that you could put a sell. When it come back down to here, you could put a buy, etc. Rinse, repeat. But now that it's here, we're drawing structure on the smaller time frames, and when you're drawing structure on the smaller time frames, you should be trading the smaller time frames. If you're buying on 15-minute candles, you're probably going to be holding it for I don't know, like a few hours, maybe half a day. It's not as strong of a buy or sell signal when you're looking at the smaller time frames. Better to use them as entries. So if there was structure on a 4 hour, which again there isn't, this is purely just as an example, if there was structure where it was going up and coming back down for a retest, the structure on the 4 hour is more valid, but you'd zoom into the 15-minute to find the entry and to watch for a reaction. I'm hoping this makes a lot of sense. It is really just drawing lines between the top points and the bottom points. and we're just sort of trying to make sense of what's happening after a large movement. This is actually going down into that green area. So that will be interesting to watch. Again, I don't really see much structure, but this larger movement on the 15-minute is what's going to start creating structure on the 1 hour or the 4 hour. So you see how that 15-minute one looked very unpredictable, up and down, and nothing that we could really see going on. But when we zoom out to the 4 hour, it's just a simple high. It's had a breakout, it's gone up a bit higher. It could create a new channel. But that's something to keep an eye on. At the moment, this is just a new high, and if you wanted to trade in the 15-minute, to be honest, because it hasn't respected that trend line, I wouldn't be placing an order. And because I can't see any confluence in this green area, I wouldn't be placing an order there either. I'll just be waiting for more structure to show itself. This candle has 2 minutes left, and it will be interesting if it does finish above that trend line, then it could actually be a valid entry. It's gone below, there was enough support to bring it back up. If it closes above that, it's a good indication that it's respecting the trend line and it may continue to go up. If there are any questions, let me know. If there's anything I didn't explain, I'm still very new to this and I'm just talking about things as I think of them and how I see them. Just let me know if there's anything more that you guys want to see. Let me know, but I'll get better. I'll get more natural over time and maybe even start scripting things. So like this, so it gets around to more people. If you think it's valuable, subscribe if you want to sort of follow along. This is just one of my intro videos, but I will soon be doing videos showing my trades and my entries. So hopefully people stick around for that. All right, see you all next time.